the institution of marriage for them, and enable them to have a happy, blessed marriage, inshallah. Marriage in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, start with that. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلًا مِّن قَبْلِكَ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَذُرِّيَّةً. In Surah Al-Ra'd, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, we have certainly sent messengers before you, O Prophet, and blessed them with wives and offspring. So the concept of marriage is deeply rooted since the creation of our Prophet Adam, peace be upon him. And then we go to the concept of marriage in Islam. And we all know that the verse from Surah Ar-Rum that talks about marriage. So let us read it and contemplate it over, because I don't think we give it the enough time to reflect upon what Allah wants us to understand from marriage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Translation goes, and one of his signs, the signs of Allah, is that He created for you spouses from among yourselves, so that you may find the comfort in them. And He has placed between you compassion and mercy. So let us reflect upon this ayah, because it deserves that reflection and deep understanding. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, three or four places in the ayah I want to reflect upon with you. First one is that spouses, Allah created spouses from among yourselves. So we are not strangers. We are created from each other. As we know, our lady Eve was created from Adam. So what that means that we are not strangers as men and women. We are not rivals. We are not enemies. Okay, that's number one. Number two, comfort. You find comfort. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's the first word for talking about marriage. Comfort. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. The metaphor of the house. The house is what? The house brings about comfort for us. When we go to our house, right? It brings about comfort to us. Same thing. When we go to our spouses, they bring comfort to us. Okay, so the spouse is seen as a house. The spouse is seen as a house where they bring comfort to each other. I'm a source of comfort for my wife. My wife is a source of comfort to me. And that's number two here. Number three in this ayah, compassion. Are we compassionate enough with our spouses? I think we need to answer this question. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for your spouse, not for other human beings, not for in-laws, but for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are you compassionate enough with your spouse? It's very important. Are you kind enough with your spouse? And then mercy. Are you merciful with your wife? Are you merciful with your husband? So when we look at that, this is the very meaning of marriage that we need to teach our children, our sons and daughters before they get married. It's that there are four components that our sons and daughters need to look at. And we as well, we need to look at to fulfill the marriage as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to fulfill, is to look at these four main elements of marriage. Then we look at another beautiful verse in the Quran that talks about marriage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. You like garments for one another. You are like clothing for one another. That is Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 187. When we look at that, dear respected brothers and sisters, what does that mean? What is the purpose of the garment metaphor here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used a metaphor, a garment. You are like a garment for each other. To understand the Quranic metaphor, we need to think of all the things which is a garment does for us. A garment protects us, right? We wear garment, we wear clothes to protect us. That's number one. So you're supposed to protect your spouse. That's number one. Number two, it covers us. It covers our faults. We don't see underclothes. So all the faults are being covered. Same thing. I covered the faults of my spouse covers my faults. We are not supposed to disgrace each other. Speak about the faults that are not seen to others. Only the spouses can see the faults. Okay? To the contrary, we are supposed to cover these faults. Not to talk about them, to beautify our spouses. Okay? That's number two. And to cover our flaws, it beautifies us. So that's the role of the garment, right? Beautifies us, give us a more beautiful appearance and shape and form. Same thing about marriage. I'm supposed to beautify my wife. My wife is supposed to beautify me, giving me a more attractive form and appearance than what I am. Okay, so we both beautify each other. And then our garment what? Adorns us. Same thing. We are supposed to adorn each other. Okay? And brings us confidence. When we wear our clothes, that gives us confidence to meet people and socialize and talk and, go to work and so on and so forth. Same thing. You're supposed to boast your spouse's confidence. So look at all these functions of the garment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the metaphor of the garment so that we can reflect on what a garment does to a human being. Same thing, what a spouse is supposed to do to one another. So the marriage is supposed to be like that, marriage relationship, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, and that is why just with the previous two verses from the Quran, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that nikah, marriage, is half of faith, half of the iman. Okay, that marriage is half of the faith. So it is so important, so powerful. It empowers our iman. It empowers our faith. And I'm saying that to emphasize that because some people, unfortunately, or very few people, look down on marriage. They talk badly about marriage. No. Marriage is so important, so crucial, so beneficial. It is a main part of our iman, of our faith. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another verse, before I move on with the problems facing marriage, says in Surah An-Nisa, a beautiful verse, وَكَيْفَ تَأْخُذُونَهُ وَقَدْ أَفْضَى بَعْضُكُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ وَأَخَذْنَ مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. How could you take it back after having enjoyed each other intimately, and she has taken from you a firm commitment? Okay, a firm commitment, an enormous covenant. That's the marriage. This ayah talks about how some husbands would give to their wives something and then they take it back. They would take it back. Either money or a gift, a piece of jewelry, whatever, and then they take it back. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits that and warns husbands who take back something from their wives, saying that, watch out, because marriage is an enormous covenant. It's not a light agreement. It's not a light agreement. It is an enormous covenant. So don't take back from your wives what you have given them. Whether it is a gift or what or inheritance or whatever. Don't take it back from them because you are violating the enormous covenant of marriage. And then we move to marriage in Muslim communities in the USA. For this topic, I have made some research about Muslim communities in the United States as well as in Canada and North America to understand something about the problems that face the institution of marriage for in Muslim communities. According to the Institute of Policy, Social Policy and Understanding, the percentage of marriage in Muslim communities is 49%. I thought it would be higher than that, but it is 49%. That is the same percentage as for the general public. So we are not, as we thought, that we have more marriages than non-Muslims. No, we are the same. We are the same, okay? So this means that we are not powerful or more powerful than non-Muslims when it comes to marriage because we have the same percentage of marriages, 49%. I'm saying that this is being not a favorable statistic. We need to have more marriages in our Muslim community and encourage our sons and daughters to get married. So I think that's our task here, is to facilitate marriage, and help our children, get married, because that's as we said, as the Prophet ﷺ said, marriage is half of the iman, half of the faith. Looking now to major challenges facing marriage. There is high divorce rate, whether we acknowledge that, whether we approve it or disapprove it. There is a high divorce rate in the Muslim communities in the United States and Canada, North America. The divorce rate among North American Muslims has risen sharply in the last 25 years. While marriage breakdown is also on the rise in some Muslim countries. So there is as if there is a correlation, between us here and back home, the Muslim countries. I think there's this kind of correlation, which is very interesting to look at. So it's not like we are different from back home in that. We have divorce problems in our Muslim communities that we need to look at and deal with. Okay, some statistics I didn't want to put those in my lecture because they are conflicting. One says that one among 3 Muslims get divorced. I thought that this might not be accurate because it's like more than 30% divorce rate. I don't think that is believable. That's a believable statistic here. It can't reach that amount, 30%. Especially the nationwide in the United States, divorce rate is 11%. So I don't think we are exceeding the nationwide or the national, divorce rate. I don't think so. That's why I don't think that's believable. But what is believable is that we have a high divorce rate in our, Muslim community. Some other challenges that we need to deal with: negative influence of the first culture on Islamic marriage. We have parents from the first culture interfering in the affairs of their married sons and daughters. Sometimes they have the good intentions, but the interference may, lead to the failure of the marriage. Making married sons and daughters dependent on parents. That's not healthy. If we are trying to do everything to help our sons and daughters, our married sons and daughters, that's not healthy because they will be dependent on us. So we need to, I would say, stop doing that and making them independent. Making them independent. Uh, Number three, carrying out un-Islamic cultural practices and enforce them as being Islamic, such as there are many that we carry out from our first culture, bring those to the United States, enforce them on our either on our marriage, on our spouses, or uh, which is more worse, on our married sons and daughters, and portraying that as being Islamic. It's not Islamic. Like what? Like the restrictive role of the wife in the family system. That is not Islamic. That's haram. That's forbidden, to restrict the role of the wife. And we figure out that this is Islamic. Has nothing to do with Islam. A woman's role, a wife is not supposed to be restrictive at all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't restrict women uh, in their house or outside their house. As long as they are practicing Islam, they're not restricted. But unfortunately, out of controlling wives, we teach our children, our sons and daughters, that it is your role to control your wife. Your wife's role is so restrictive and restricted. That's one of the things. There are many other things, but this is one of the things. Lack of Islamic education. How many of our married sons and daughters know the Quranic verse, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, treat them fairly? How many of them practice, even the ones who know that verse? How many of them actually practice that, translate that into their married life, and treat their wives, their spouses fairly, in a fair way that satisfies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How many? How many, when they go for divorce of our sons and daughters, they have read the verse تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ, separation with grace? How many do that? They fight with each other. They try to knock down each other. They try to, get everything out of their divorced wife or husband. Like it is a war. And the war, it is what? Everything is justifiable. It's not a war. It's not justifiable. Obey what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. Divorce with grace. Divorce with justice. You're not supposed to oppress your wife when you divorce your wife. If this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined that your marriage life has come to an end, be fair in your divorce, and divorce with grace. Separate with grace, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, tasrihun bihsan. Lack of or zero legal education. Especially, how many of our sons and daughters know something about the laws of marriage and divorce in the United States? How many? They don't. They are surprised, they are shocked when they, file for divorce. Oh, I didn't know that these are the laws. They are not educated before they get married on, the laws for marriage, the laws for divorce in the United States. Lack of another problem, another challenge. Islamic divorce versus legal divorce. Some Muslim husbands would divorce their wives 3 times, that is the irrevocable divorce. A divorce that, with no return, with no, return. Okay? And the civil marriage is still active. Why you do that? Why you do that? That is a serious problem. And some of them live with their spouses. That's haram. In the same house. That's haram. So either that you understand your Islam, and you don't use with no reasons divorce for no reasons. You use all of the divorce oaths that you have, and you expire them, and you want to still live in the house until you get divorced from your spouse. How can you do that? So we have a problem here. Lack of resources. I'm seeing that, unfortunately, in all of our masajids across the United States, it's only the imam. The imam is burdened with solving the problem of spouses in dispute. It is much more beyond the capacity of the imam. Sometimes the problem is psychological. It needs a psychologist. Sometimes the problem has to be treated by a counselor. Sometimes the problem has to be dealt with experts in other fields. So to burden the imam with, okay, go ahead, meet the imam. Okay, and what is the result? What is the result? Divorce takes place because the imam doesn't have the knowledge or the expertise to solve the problem. If it is not religious, if it is the problem is religious, the imam is, of course, the most qualified figure to solve the problem. But the problem is not religious. The problem is not religious. The problem is social, psychological, financial, cultural, legal, many other things. So the imam doesn't have the knowledge and the expertise to deal with the problem. And we end with that. The next one here, next point I talk about is that, and that's something really very cool, is the Muslims in the Muslim communities, they are accepting divorce than age peers in the general public. What I'm saying, this is good. This is a good side, because if marriage is failing, and we have exhausted every possible way, it's not right to suspend divorce, and keep torturing the spouses here. So this statistic says that 57% of Muslims are okay. They accept divorce when marriage falls apart, like it's beyond repair. This is higher than other faiths in the United States. Catholics would come second to that. Okay, so basically that is something good, because if marriage is failing and then there is no other way. Suspending a spouse is haram in Islam. Not divorcing your wife is a big haram, especially back home. There are cases where a husband would suspend his wife. He considers his wife to be divorced, but however, he doesn't want to divorce his wife. And that can take years. That is a big haram. A big haram. Now, with that one here, the course of action, what can we do about it? The good thing is that the majority of Muslims favor more support for divorced people in their faith community. So what that means that our Muslim community looks at their masjids, for example, as being a main support for them, and they accept that the masjid is their primary source, their essential source to step in and help reform, and the two spouses, and help them to fix up their marriage. Okay, so that is a good thing here, that the majority of Muslims favor more support for divorced people in their faith community. That's really good. So, from that point, from that statistic, dear respected brothers and sisters, I want to call upon the ICGT to create an institute of marriage. That would be so good here. And it can do many tasks I will talk about here, because that can be a good solution. And ICGT can be a pioneer, not only in Toledo, but it will be maybe in the state of Ohio. I haven't seen yet an institute of marriage uh, to be created or to be established in an Islamic institution. We need that. We need that. Okay, so I will talk about what can a proposed institute of marriage can do. Okay, number one, educating our sons and daughters, mainly college students, okay, and older, unmarried sons and daughters on marriage in Islam. So, a course in Islam, a course on marriage in Islam. And then our sons and daughters register for this course and take it. Take that course to get educated on what is marriage in Islam. It's like an entire course that goes through all the Quran and the Hadith of the Prophet and teach them what is the concept of marriage. How can you treat your spouse in Islam? Okay. Number two, educating our children, our sons and daughters on the legal aspects of marriage itself. Like, as I mentioned, they are not educated on the laws for marriage and divorce in the United States. So that can be another course, you know, marriage or civil marriage, a course on civil marriage. Know all the laws about marriage and divorce in the United States. This is important before you get married. That can be another course to be taken. Okay. Educating our sons and daughters on problem solving skills. That's another thing, you know. We want them to solve their problems, being able to solve their problems that face their marriage. That can be as well a course on that. Leadership skills, problem solving skills, crisis management. There are many theories, many good knowledge that can help, you know, our sons and daughters, our married sons and daughters, or who are about to get married, to know how can they solve any problems, you know, without being panicked, without having any anxiety that, oh, my marriage is falling apart. What I'm supposed to do? No, if they know something about problem solving, you know, they will be able to handle the problem that face their marriage. And then offering marriage counseling. This is very important as well. A good statistic about marriage counseling in the United States nationwide, it says 45 to 50% of marriages are saved by marriage counseling. This is very important and so crucial. So at least half of failing marriages can be saved through counseling. And it is, I think it is time to look at that measure, you know, to have marriage and family therapist. I haven't seen that yet in Toledo or in Ohio. That is a specialization. That's a major with training. It is a college degree with training for 2 years to be equipped with knowledge and practice. How can they become a marriage therapist? It's time, dear respected brothers and sisters, to think of that. Okay. What else? Helping interested sons and daughters of our community to seek a profession, as I said, as a marriage and family therapist. I mentioned this point. Making courses available online, you know, through the proposed Institute of Marriage. Let us have those courses as well, to be both in person and online, available for our sons and daughters who may go to a university out of town or out of state. They are interested in taking the course, make it available for them, okay? Or their work schedule, they work somewhere else, or their work schedule is restrictive, they want to take the course. So that can be a good idea to help our sons and daughters get equipped with online education through the Institute of Marriage. Number 7 here is forming a fatwa committee as a part of the Institute of Marriage. The fatwa committee is chaired by the imam and is tasked with all the fatwa about marriage, because there are many challenging fatwas about marriage. And we need to handle that as well. Through as well the Institute of Marriage. I want the Institute of Marriage to be an umbrella that deals with everything that relates to marriage and divorce. So this is like our one resource that the masjid can create for the community. And I'm sure that people from outside the community can seek help with a proposed Institute of Marriage, especially as I mentioned with a revocable divorce. When divorce is revocable and you can return to your spouse. When divorce is not revocable, it is irrevocable, beyond repair and beyond return, you know. So these are things that imam would deal with, fatwa. This is part of the fatwa to help our married sons and daughters get the Islamic way of handling their fatwa needs. I want to conclude with, and then we can have questions, conclude with a case study done, and I would advise everyone to look at that case study. It's done by Professor Julie McFarlane, a fellow at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, and she's a professor at the University of Windsor. She has a case study that involved 212 people. Some of them are divorced. They talk about their divorce. Some of them faced marriage problems, but they were to reform and repair their marriage. Some of the interviewed and people involved in the case study are imams and the other figure from the community. And it is a great book. 212 testimonials and narratives from people from different walks, Muslim people from different walks of life who have experience with marriage and divorce, you know. So I would like to guide you to that resource, and I plan on purchasing a copy for our masjid, because this is, I believe, an indispensable resource to be at the masjid. One of the things that Professor, I forgot the name, the professor talked about, Professor of Windsor talked about, is that how the first culture can really disengage and causing the failure of marriage. She talks about a couple of things. One, which she calls the internal culture, which is a Muslim married to a convert. And then after a while, he faced the problems with his wife. And the wife as well faced the problems with him. And unfortunately, it ended in divorce. Okay, so that means that it's not only the Islamic religion, but there should be some kind of cultural harmony as well. So there was no cultural harmony between the spouses, okay, at all. You know, you have a convert here, a convert woman, and then you have a man from a different culture. They got married. Unfortunately, they were not able to save their marriage and ended in divorce. Okay. The other one was, she said about how, and I'm seeing that really, I have seen that in Toledo and other places, how mothers prefer to marry their sons from women from overseas. Yeah. And she said that with the language barrier, with the wife not understanding the American culture, this marriage would face huge problems, and most of them end in divorce. So that can be another problem with marriage itself. That uh, culture is important. And so if there is a cultural harmony, I'm not saying that people with the same nationality should marry outside nationality, no marriage. No, I'm not saying that, but at least there is some cultural harmony there that can help. Of course, there must not be any language barrier, because you know uh, you're oppressing, I would say, a wife if she has a language barrier, because really, she gets bored staying at house and being dependent on you as a husband, and so her life is not progressing at all. And I'm not seeing the wisdom for that. But anyhow, but this is just one of the problems and issues that face marriage. So thank you, dear respected brothers and sisters, and would like to see if you have any questions, discussions. I would like to see your input as well. It's not just one person talking. It is your input is more important than my lecture. Okay. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Just giving input. I think I'm 25, so I'm in that kind of college, a little older than the college level, but yes, and I think that an institute of marriage would be very, very helpful coming out of the masjid. I just wanted to put that in
Right.
there.
It's good to know that, sister. Thank you. It's good to know that. Alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
It's a very interesting topic.
Thank you, brother.
And well-deserved attention to it. I think in our institution, we don't have the toolkit provided to the religious leaders who can mitigate all these challenges. They need to have resources that they could reach out and not try to solve a problem that they are not equipped to handle.
Right.
That's a comment.
Right. I agree with you. Thank you, brother. Yeah.
Most of the marriages Muslims occur in the mosques, From the imam, our imam educated about what lies ahead, especially the marriages I'm talking about between different religions, different cultures. Because to me, it looks like the number that you mentioned, 30% divorce rate amongst Muslims. I obviously don't know the study, but I can bet that most of those marriages came from inter-religious, type of setups, or intercultural at least, If not, the cultures from back home getting married to someone over here with a language barrier like you alluded to. Are our imams, can they step in, and say, well, wait a minute, I'm ready to get you married in the mosque, but you need to look into it a little further, like other religions do.
Right. I agree with you, brother, that we need to have admission requirements or something like that. Yeah. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's a very important topic.
Thank you, Dr. Fadma.
And the sad part is the same ratio is happening in Muslim countries.
Yes.
So if we want to blame the American society and the traditions of the American society as the culprit, we can't do that.
Right.
Because it's happening in Muslim countries as well.
Right.
The other thing is a lot of our imams are not really very well versed in Islamic law vis-a-vis family law.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, the other issue is there are many hadiths and there are many opinions, fatwas, by different imams that contradict one another.
Right.
And so a person who wants to use a reason for divorce can always pick one.
Right.
It's there.
Right.
And we have a choice to choose which imam we want, which madhab we want,
Right.
which school of law we want. But those things were not allowed. I mean, I've had experiences with women who needed marriage and the imams refused to allow them to have the divorce because Abu Hanifa said the man has to initiate the divorce.
Mm.
And this is actually the one reason that made me go into University of Michigan and specialize in Islamic law vis-a-vis family law. Many women were stuck,
Yes.
and that's another issue. So I don't think unless the imam is well versed in all aspects of family law, they cannot really help the couples as well.
Right. Right.
And now when you take the culture and superimpose it on the difficulties in the marriage, that makes another difference too. So
Right.
it makes it hard,
Right.
makes it very difficult.
Yes. Great. Great. Thank you, Dr. Hayani. Thank you. Mentioning the fatwa, I have come across recently of two contradictory fatwas. One says that a divorce oath through WhatsApp is valid, okay, and divorce is taking place. And the other said no. So two contradictory fatwas. Like a husband divorces his wife over a text message through WhatsApp. And he was saying, is my divorce valid? Does it count? And two contradictory sources. One said, yes, it counts as one of your three divorces that you have. And the other said, no, it doesn't count. That's why we need, a fatwa committee, not just one person taking care of the fatwa. Yeah.
But the fatwa committee would be liable to issue fatwas which can be challenged.
True.
So why do we give so much weight to fatwas? Fatwa to me is the interpretation of the scripture in the light of the ahadith, or ahadith in the light of the Quran, I should say. It's somebody's opinion. You mentioned this thing that I think those fatwas should be taken into consideration. I am not a scholar, but I would say that having read the literature, I have come to a conclusion that you can go and get a fatwa on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is true, then why should we rely on them?
True. I mean, to answer this question, it is very challenging, Dr. Amjad. But to
Why
answer,
do you think that I asked you?
right. I know your questions are all challenging, but to answer this question or try to answer it, there is fiqh scholar and there are scholars who are in charge of the fatwa. We are not supposed to give fatwa because if our fatwa is wrong, or if I give fatwa to myself or my wife and it's wrong, I bear the responsibility on the day of judgment for that. But if a person who is more equipped than me to give the fatwa, he's a scholar, or it is Dar al-Ifta al-Masriya, this is the house of Ifta, where scholars from all the Islamic doctrines are there, they bear the responsibility, So it is not my task to say the fatwa or to give the fatwa. But, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الْعِلْمِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. أَسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Thank you. Ask the people of zikr, people of knowledge, if you don't know.
But there's one other thing, and
Yes.
that is not to do with fatwa, is that generally speaking, women in our religion have been treated badly.
Yes.
And I think it's either a misinterpretation of the holy book or the societal, which is not religious,
Right.
societal pressure
Right.
on
Right.
the women is
Right.
that, as you gave one example of, that if the man does not want to give a divorce,
Right.
the woman is stuck.
Right. Right.
So that when it comes to women's right, I have heard so many times Islam has given women so many rights and
Right.
everything else, but Islam has not given women the equal rights.
No, that's not true. Islam has given all the equal rights to women. But the problem is with the cultural practice, we oppress women out of cultural norms, not out of Islam, like what happened
But in
in.
the name of Islam.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course. Of course. As terrorism is committed in the name of Islam, you know. Uh, like there was a recent practice, I don't want to name the country, but they deprived the women from a license privilege to drive her cars, you know. And why? They said this is Islam. This is not Islam. This is the cultural practice. Another practice in the same country was that the girl would work, okay, and then she doesn't take her salary. She gave it to her father. And she thinks that this is Islam. This is not Islam. This is the practice. So there are many unfair practices that are unfortunately attributed to Islam so that they could control the women. Yeah.
What I'd like to know is, why are we stuck with the decisions made by major four scholars in the Sunni tradition and different scholars from the Shia decision when they were made 1400 years ago,
Yes.
when things have changed? And one of the research I made was finding out why the divorce rate was high in Lebanon.
Yes.
And I found out that many of the women were oppressed by their husbands, but once they have education and they have a job, they decided they were not going to live under such oppression.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons. So why are we stuck with these decisions when they were made 1400 years ago, when the society has changed, women have changed, opportunities have changed? And this really bothers me. And then when we have different opinions on the same issue by different scholars,
Right.
we have a very big problem that needs to be addressed, and we are not addressing it. In fact, I believe we're regressing.
Right.
I've studied the things in Syria, in Lebanon, in Palestine, and I have had cases that I had worked on as an expert witness where Islam was completely denied.
Yes.
There was no Islamic practice at all.
Right.
When a woman inherits a piece of land and her brothers will refuse to give it to her,
Yeah.
and she's not allowed to go to the court because it would dishonor the family,
Yes.
these are happening all over.
Yes.
And then denying women to have their own children
Right. Right.
after a divorce.
Right.
You have a stepmother who's abusing them. I mean, there were many cases where I dealt with.
Right.
So it's really very serious, and we have big issues we
Right.
are not addressing. That's what bothers me.
True.
We are not addressing them, even in this country.
Because we like to taqleed. We want to follow. We do not want to challenge.
Well, it's too bad because the Quran tells us to challenge. لعلكم تعلكم تعقلون.
Yes.
لعلكم تفكرون.
Yes.
To think, to use your mind. We're not using our mind.
Right. The Mayan Dr. Hayani was suspended for hundreds of years.
It's since the 13th century.
You're right. After
They closed ijtihad.
right after the fuqaha, Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i and so on and so forth. A recent one who really didn't suspend his mind and came up with good fatwas was interest is not haram if you're buying a house. Interest is not haram if you're buying a car. I mean, that's different, but I'm just giving the example. I'm not validating the
It's an
fatwa.
issue that
Right.
needs to be addressed.
Right, right.
It's
And
riba, the Quran haram riba.
right. And he was attacked for
There's
that.
a big difference between riba and interest.
And interest, right, right.
People are not addressing
Getting the
that.
distinction right. But he was attacked for that, to buy a house for yourself and your wife and your kids.
Protect you.
Right, protect you. They attacked him, and to buy a car, it is a necessity. He said this is a necessity, it's not a luxury in the United States and Europe and Canada, like in our back home countries. Owning a car is, a luxury, but here is not, And he said, the interest, getting a loan from the bank is fine with interest to buy a car and to buy a house. He was attacked for that. But in my mind,
When was that?
this was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
But let me say this thing is that Imam Khattab, God bless him,
Yes.
this mosque was built in 1980,
Mm-hmm.
and he had given,
Mm-hmm.
call it a fatwa, call it an opinion, that you can have interest banking to finance a mosque.
Yeah.
So this mosque was built
Yes.
but with a loan from the bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was ahead of his time.
Right.
One thing which you forget is,
Sorry?
one thing which you forget is, we do not have alternatives.
Right.
As a Muslim and Muslim countries alike, we are caught in this, riba and not riba, what is it?
Right. What is riba and what's not
We
riba?
don't
Right.
have any alternative to practice. There is
Right.
an alternative, according to
Right.
Quran. And I've looked into it and looked into it and looked into it. There is an alternative.
Right.
But that's going to change the entire financial system
Right.
of Muslim countries where they are. But beggars as we are,
Right.
we cannot survive.
Right.
Literally, Muslim countries cannot survive without dependence on the West.
Right.
So Quran, of course, Quran is in our heart, everything.
Right.
But to practice Quran, we need independence from the Western system altogether. Are we ready for that?
Right.
Of course not.
From the Western system.
Western financial system to create,
Financial.
to create an entirely Quranic financial system. There is, and a lot of people don't know about it. And I'm not a financial guru by any means. I'm just a physician. But there is a system. And the reason we cannot go there to practice it, even in Muslim countries, is because of our dependence. That's our problem. But coming back to the current topic, I think the least we can do is to start whatever we want to do according to the Quran. Go to Quran, please,
Right.
and act upon Quran and live with it. Most of the things that we can practice from Quran in this country are legal. Quran is practiced in this country much more than any other place in the world,
True.
except financial system.
True.
And that is the backbone of the society. Unfortunately, nobody touches that. And part of the problem is they don't understand it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So in this book that Professor McFarland, the
Yeah.
literature professor, wrote, does she categorize the different type of relationships, like non-Muslim man with a Muslim woman, Muslim man with a non-Muslim woman, Muslim man, Muslim woman? Does she categorize the different scenarios and stuff?
This is a very good question, but because I haven't read the book,
okay.
I just read the summary, so I can't answer this question. But from the reviews I looked at, this is an exceptional book that I believe should be in the library of all the masajids. This is highly reliable, authentic, and it can get us to solve many problems. Especially in marriage counseling, saving marriage. How can we go with peaceful divorce, separation with grace, not with disgrace? Yeah. Thank you. Ahmed.
Anybody else?
There is a brother in the back.
Oh, this is for the internet. So the internet people can hear it. Yeah, really.
So my question is, what about if you look at it the other way? So you were talking about marriage and the high rate of divorce, which is realistically now we are encountering the opposite of that, where people are not believing in the institution of marriage in general. And we have high rate of people not getting married or
Yeah.
not being able to get married for many reasons.
Mhm.
Financial, it could be social norms, could be many things. And it's facing our community here in North America and also back home.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts about I would say the recent, maybe the last 30, 40 years, change in gender roles, with the women being able to, they're educated, they
Can work.
jobs,
Right.
go to work, support themselves, and with that they gain some power. and men maybe seeing that as a threat instead of an asset.
Right.
And the cultural norms that they were growing up on, being the provider, the protector, and women not seeing that much anymore.
Right.
Saying like, hey, I can provide for myself. And then going after your whims and desires as far as a human being, meeting your needs. So I feel like now we're facing other challenges, not just holding on to the marriage or, hey, I don't want to get divorced. Actually, not even thinking about it, not even wanting to go into that kind of project because I feel it's kind of failed project and I just want to move on. It's kind of like a sentiment that is happening worldwide, regardless of religious background. So I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Sure. I agree with you, brother, but the reasons for less marriages in our back home countries are different from here. Basically, we have many people who want to get married back homes and, in all the Islamic countries, but the problem is the expenses of marriage. They can't afford it. It is too expensive. It's not here expensive. It is too expensive there because you need to buy a home, find a home, and then the shabka, the gift, and then the dowry, so many expenses,
Which is not Islamic.
which is not Islamic. That's what I will come for. Yeah, right. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, أقلهن مهورا أكثرهن بركة. The ones getting the least amount of dowry, mahr, is the one that is most blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And in another hadith, إذا جاءكم من تزوجوه فزوجوه فإن لم تفعلوا ففتنة وفساد في الأرض. If a person comes to you to get married, proposing the hand of your daughter to get married, facilitate marriage for him. If you are not doing that, this is a big corruption on earth, But the people are not really abiding by Islam. Even if you talk to a sheikh back home, they would say, I'm saying that to the people, not practicing that myself. They would say, you want to marry my daughter for free? No. And even though he would have said that in the masjid 15 minutes ago, he would say, if the person comes to you proposing the hand of your daughter is memorizing the Quran and good with the hadith and would fear Allah and would treat your daughter in the most Islamic way, marry him. And then when you go to him, asking him just shortly after the hadith, he gave to the masjid the speech, he would say, no, that was for the people, not,
Are we then?
Yeah.
Great.
This time.
It's time for
my
that.
last
Okay,
point is-
sure.
Still,
So maybe we should reflect upon
still 10
ourselves.
minutes. So,
We should reflect upon ourselves if we are hypocrites.
Right.
Speaking say what we say, but we don't do what we say. We don't believe in what we say. And back to what the lady mentioned, which is I agree with. There is this subtle conflict between culture and Islamic practices and religion and teachings. I feel there is more cultural influence that has the umbrella of Islam, but it's not really coming from Islam because there's lack of knowledge, because people don't really go study Islam the way they should study, which is wajib and a farida for everybody.
Right.
Actually go, not just take it for what it is, because my dad said so, or my mom told me so, or my sheikh taught me so. What did you go look?
Right.
So I feel like there's this disconnect that has been going on for
Right.
generations, not even like
Right.
30
A,
years ago.
a comment about what you said, brother, is about the double standards. Professor McFarlane mentioned that one case for divorce was the husband showed or has double standards. He was so strict with his wife. No, this dress code is not appropriate outside the house, something like that, And so he was so strict with his wife, and his wife found him that he was drinking alcohol with no restrictions. He was not praying, and she got divorced for these double standards. You can't enforce a strict moral code on me while in fact you're so loose and you're not caring about Islam or about anything. Just, you want to enforce it on me, So yeah, double standards it can be a reason for divorce, it's a big problem. It's not just for divorce and marriage, it's a big problem. If we have double standards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stated in the Quran that there is a big torture for double double standard people, the hypocrite. Yeah.
Yeah, all
Right.
of us have little bit of that in us, all of us.
Well, if it is a small amount that you're not able to deal with it, Allah would forgive. But it's not like a big double standards that causing oppression and injustice. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Al. Thank you all. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.